actually thought real hard about this text. And I did struggle a bit with this image. But I had a lot of help in trying to figure this out over the week and think about this. Our psalm for today, which was not read this morning, is one we all know. It's the 23rd Psalm. And the very beginning of that psalm, you can probably recall it, recite it in your mind, is the premise of the entire psalm. It sets up what the entire song is meant to draw attention to and give praise to and give explanation to. And it is, the Lord is my shepherd. Therefore, I shall not want. Another way of saying that is, I lack for nothing. Think about that for a second. Jesus draws upon that very popular image of trust when he teaches in our text this morning, using the same image of sheep and shepherd. Except instead of saying that in the psalm it says, God says that God is the shepherd, Jesus takes that image and applies that to himself. And he calls himself, he says, I am the good, or the ideal, or the beautiful shepherd. And just prior to our verse today, where our text started in verse 11, Jesus makes a pretty bold statement. He states exactly why he came. He said, I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. I am the Good Shepherd. So I want us to think about the lacking for nothing of Psalm 23 and the abundant life in our text for this morning. I want us to look at those two things. Does that not speak to our greatest desire and deepest longing? We long to want for nothing. We long to have all of our needs met. We long to have a life that's full and complete and whole. What is it that speaks to this longing? What prevents us from right now, in the way we live our lives, what prevents us from actually realizing this? The Bible promises that if the Lord is your shepherd, you will want for nothing. If Jesus is your shepherd, the Good Shepherd, you will have abundant life. I think there is one thing that holds these images together from Psalm 23 and from John 10, and that is our deepest longing for security. We want to be secure. Secure in ourselves. Secure in our faith. Secure in our finances. Secure in our relationships. We want to be secure. We want to live with certainty. We want what the shepherd offers the sheep. The shepherd's main job, above all other jobs that the shepherd has, is to provide security for the sheep, to protect the sheep, to find where to lead the sheep to the best grass, to make sure that there are no snakes in the holes, to make sure that they're in a place where they can feel safe in order to graze and to drink and to rest and to enjoy one another. Sheep are inherently fearful. They're inherently insecure. That's how we all know sheep to be. seen sheep. You come up on a sheep, particularly if they don't know you, you're not the shepherd, they will run away from you. We have a sense of really needing to feel secure, and we follow any shepherd that promises us that security. We cannot assume that everyone will always follow Jesus, that every Christian follows Jesus at every moment in their lives. What we do is we follow that voice that we believe will provide us the greatest security. And sometimes by following that voice, whatever that voice is, whoever that voice is, we take others with us. And then we realize how lost we are. Jesus promises us in this text today, God promises us in this text today that He is the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd lays down His life for the sheep. The hirelings do not own the sheep. They do not care about the sheep. They will not give their lives for the sheep. The hirelings will run away. They may take some of us with them in the process. But Jesus promises, I am not a good shepherd, not one among many. I am the Good Shepherd. And the Good Shepherd will search us out. The Good Shepherd will find us when we go astray. The Good Shepherd will not leave us. That is the promise of this text. God does not leave us to our own devices. God will find us and bring us home. Now, if we follow, when we follow, as we follow that shepherd, we will discover, and many of us have discovered over time, that we lack for nothing. We discover the abundance, the fullness of life that God promises, that Jesus promises. I have a question to ask you. If you knew, if you were perfectly secure, let's just say that money, you had all the money you needed, you had all the time you needed, your relationships were solid, there was no resource or no support that you would lack. If you could not fail in something that you did, what would you choose to do? If you were totally secure in yourself and in the things that are a part of your life, what would you choose to do? How would you answer that question? How would you answer that question? Jesus gives us some insight into how someone who is secure in the Lord might answer that question. Jesus says that the Good Shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. My guess is our answer would have something to do with helping someone else, providing for someone else, helping someone else in their life, helping someone else in their need. I don't think I'm too far off thinking that way. Martin Luther had a way, he did research on this text. He preached on this text quite often. And he had a sermon that he wrote in which he said that we are sheep in shepherd's clothing. We are sheep in shepherd's clothing. Which means that as Christians, we are sheep, or as people we are sheep. We seek to follow someone. We want to follow someone who's greater, who knows more, who has more experience, who can see farther than we can. But at the same time, we are also in a shepherding role. God puts us in a shepherding role as well. We shepherd our children if we're parents. We shepherd our employees if we're employers. We shepherd our students as teachers. We shepherd our confirmands as confirmation teachers or mentors. We have shepherding roles. And so, but at the same time we have shepherding roles, we know that none of us here is a perfect shepherd. Luther wants us to be aware that in Jesus we have the Good Shepherd. When we fall short or feel burdened in our shepherding or strained, we have two things that we can rely on. Number one, we have Jesus. Because Jesus says in the text that He is the Good Shepherd. Which means there's not one among many Good Shepherds. He is the Good Shepherd. We can go to Him. The other thing we see is, what we have is the flock. We have the flock. What's the singular for sheep? Sheep. What's the plural for sheep? Sheep. Anytime you say sheep, you're implying the flock. We have one another. The flock has one another. We are actually a part of a great flock with one great shepherd, and we actually learn from each other. A sheep can only see 6 feet. Did you know that? Sheep are short-sighted. They can only see 6 feet. That's why they hang out with other sheep all the time. As long as they have another sheep in sight, they feel more secure. Because their sight becomes greater when they're with a flock. They can see more when they're with the flock than they can individually. But the shepherd is the one that can see the furthest. He can see what even the sheep in the flock cannot see. And so we follow that shepherd, who is Jesus. The creator of all things can see pretty far. So we have Jesus and we have the flock. There's one thing that we learn from this text too about being a shepherd. As shepherds, sheep in shepherd's clothing, we can also learn something about being shepherds in our families, in our neighborhoods, in our place of employment, in our church. The first thing is, a good shepherd recognizes, the sheep recognize the voice of the shepherd. The sheep recognize the voice of the shepherd. Jesus says, the sheep recognize my voice. So as shepherds, one of the things that we can do is listen. Not only as sheep, listening to Jesus, listening for the voice of the Lord, but we can also listen to one another. We can listen to the sheep that we shepherd. Which means spending time with sheep. Which means spending time with them. Listening to their needs, their concerns, their joys, and their sorrows. Getting to know our sheep as Jesus knows us. The second thing, as sheep, we follow where God leads, even through the darkest valley. Even through the darkest valley. Likewise, as shepherds, shepherds are willing to go where the sheep are. They're willing to go through the dark valley Not only lead them, but be with them as shepherds. And the third thing that is uniquely Jesus, we lay down our life for others. We lay down our life for others. Now, Jesus mentions this literally. He lays down his life. He dies for us. And we, in turn, as shepherds, are to be willing to lay down our life for our brothers and sisters. But we don't even have to go that far. We can go on to say that we are willing and enabled to alter our lives, our priorities, and our agendas for the sake of another in the flock. Are we willing to do that as shepherds? We are called to do that as shepherds. That's what 1 John 3 was about. About loving one another, about laying down one's life for a brother or sister. These three things: recognizing the voice, listening for God and listening to one another, following where God leads, even through the darkest valley, which means being with and in the lives of our flock, be willing to walk with them through the dark valleys, and to lay down our lives, to be willing to alter our agendas, and to alter our priorities, and to maybe alter our very life to help those in need. I'd like to close by sharing a story of what this looks like. One day a man stopped in a convenience store to get a newspaper. He noticed that the owner of the store had tears in his eyes and kept looking out the window of the store. He asked what was going on, and the store owner said, "Do you see that bus bench over there? There's a woman who comes there every day around this time. She sits for about an hour, knitting and waiting. Buses come and go, but she never gets on one, and no one ever gets off to meet her. The other day, I carried a cup of coffee and sat with her for a while. Her only son lives a long way away. She last saw him 2 years ago when he boarded one of the buses right there where she was sitting. He is married now, and she has never met her daughter-in-law or seen their new child. She told me it helps to come here and to wait. I pray for them as I knit little things for the baby, and I imagine them in their tiny apartment saving money to come home. I can't wait to see them." The reason the owner was looking out the window at that particular moment was as he was relaying this story, 3 people got off the bus to meet this woman. The look on the woman's face when this small family fell into her arms was one of pure joy. And this joy only increased when she looked into the face of her little grandchild for the first time. The store owner commented, "I'll never forget that look as long as I live." The next day, the same man returned to the convenience store. The owner was again behind the counter, but before the store owner could say or do anything, the customer said, "You sent her son the money for the bus ticket, didn't you?" The store owner looked back with eyes full of love and a smile and replied, "Yes, I sent it." Then he repeated his statement from the day before, "I'll never forget that look as long as I live." Now this sheep in shepherd's clothing had discovered a measure of abundant life at that moment. We all long for a shepherd to make us secure in who we are, and whose we are, and how to live a beautiful life. Jesus is the Good Shepherd, who shepherds the sheep in shepherd's clothing, who gives his life for the sheep so that we might have life to share with others. Jesus shows us how to listen, how to follow, and how to give life away. May God help us to always follow our shepherd Jesus, so that we might reflect God and truly lack for nothing.